welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high-performance computing. Today, my guest is from Univa. We have Gary Tyreman. Gary, welcome to the show today.
Hey, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on, Gary. You know, you had an announcement today, something kind of unexpected. But Grid Engine for ARM processors. It's in beta release, and can you tell us more about that?
I would be happy to. So, the fact that it was unexpected means it was probably expected somewhere. So what we've done and what we've announced, and I'll walk through some of the specifics here, is we've announced our support for ARM-based servers. We partnered up with Calxeda, and we're bringing that out to market. Our view is it's a pretty important step. It's a sea change. It's an opportunity for us to get out. A lot of folks are testing, and we want to make sure that when they're doing so, they can do it at scale, and that's exactly what Grid Engine provides.
Okay, and I guess, Gary, we'll do Q&A at the end, but I've brought your slides up, but I did want to know, you've supported other architectures and kinds of devices before than just x86, have you not?
Oh, absolutely. Grid Engine probably has the broadest support of all the products in the workload management space. From architectures and operating systems, we still have many customers running what I would dare say are esoteric or long in the tooth servers, whether it's RISC or some operating systems that are rather old that start with, say, AIX or even SunOS, the predecessor to Solaris. So the support has been around for some time. This is a natural step in an evolution along that process. All right, so quick, just before we jump into it, make sure everyone understands a little bit about Univa. There may be some understanding, but I thought it would be good to do a quick update. So our business is developing, advancing open source Grid Engine, and building out proprietary enhancements on there, providing a future for the product. So what we've done over the last 2 years after bringing Fritz Ferstl, who's the key architect, the founder of the Grid Engine project, to Univa and his team, we've been pretty busy. I'd like to say we've done some great things. For one, we're the largest single contributor to open source to that project outside of Sun and Oracle, and that was our first release, 8.0. Since then, we've been busy building out the features and the capabilities. I think now if you add the number of releases, including our patches and our feature extensions, new and minor releases, I think we're up to 26 since the beginning of 2011. We've had some pretty good growth, both in revenue and, of course, customers year over year. And we are very pleased to say that 82% of our customers are enterprises. And what that really means is we're drawn into industry, and that's an example of where Grid Engine's been deployed. Now, in terms of the customer sets, when we started 2012, we had primarily your typical enterprise technical computing customers. So it was organizations like you see on the slide in EDA, semiconductor, industrial manufacturing, oil and gas, and what have you. When we exited the year, we had successfully positioned and sold the product into two emerging areas for us. And the first is underneath enterprise applications. That's supporting crew and fleet scheduling for the airlines, many of the logistics and transportation companies. And that is a very different use case. However, it's the same product. And the second is we finished the year with about 6% of our customers outside HPC, inside big data. And these are customers in production. I've got a couple of them that are up here on the slide. There's many more that have taken Hadoop and the MapReduce applications and used the Univa Grid Engine integration. And so this really starts to paint a picture in the evolution of Grid Engine and how we see it progressing into the market and providing opportunities not just for Univa, but I think for all of the our fellow travelers in the HPC space. So the other thing, just quickly, just to help people understand, we have a new product which is entering private beta. We're doing those deployments as we speak. Is Univa License Orchestrator. This is a pretty significant amount of advancement in the technology and the capabilities around grid engine environments. Very simply, it enhances grid engine clusters by extending the management to the most expensive licenses and to ensure that there's policies applied to those using the very same policies that you have inside grid engine and inside your cluster. So that is very promising. We're very happy and excited to see that. As I mentioned, we have private beta going on. We still expect that to start shipping in the next few months, and we're looking forward to how this can help some of our largest and most important customers treat their licenses as they do their other resources, and either trim the costs, maintain an expense curve that's predictable, and that I think is going to provide an awful lot of value for grid engine users. So before I jumped into ARM and the discussion of what we've done with the processor, I thought it made sense to kind of talk about some of the trends that we're seeing and that we're tracking. And the first is that there's a very strong set of management tools that have been deployed and in use for over a decade underneath in support of big compute clusters. And I think the view is you can take those same tools, products, and technologies and apply it against big data. And we see that happening today. And I think there are several point examples, whether it be ISVs or hardware providers, taking a set of known capabilities and applying it against what's fundamentally a new capability. At the end of the day, for big data, Hadoop is the poster child. Hadoop is a cluster, requires a cluster. And as you can see here, it's a very common architecture. There are some subtle differences. So our view is this is bringing together the technologies, capabilities, but more importantly, for those who got a little more gray hair in the space, Hadoop could be the killer application that drives clusters into every enterprise on the planet. And Univa is well positioned for this with our deep integration and automation for Hadoop. We've coined the term in the middle there, the big data platform, which is because it's more than just grid engine, but it's, again, fundamentally the same product. Other trends that we see, I don't think we're the only people that understand that space and power and cooling are increasingly troublesome, and that's not going to get any better. You can't power and you can't cool because you can't get enough electricity and power into the rack. Therefore, you space it out. Now you've got a space problem because packing in fewer servers because of the density, and it just creates it's a sequence of problems. So what we've also seen is performance gaps being solved using point solutions. And there's a few examples here where best-in-class solutions are beginning to enter the data center simply because people are tuning their applications to the hardware or the architecture. And that's really, at the end of the day, because they're trying to live within these physical constraints of power, cooling, and space and drive as much throughput, depending on the application or the application set, or as much performance out of the system. That's a very expensive system, so 1 ounce or 1% can be a significant increase. So in the last few years, we've seen GPUs, we've seen FPGA accelerators, we've seen SSD come in, perhaps as example like Fusion IO, and then recently the Intel Xeon Phi. So our view is ARM is a Lego block that is and will be applied. Now, what we see is the value is it's a new form factor, so that helps to solve some physical space issues when you can contract multiple racks into one or half a rack or 2 racks, and then the low power consumption potentially being 90% less at full steam means you can help solve some of your power and cooling issues. And I think those are pretty powerful in reducing value propositions, but it's not a panacea, and I think we understand that it's suitable for specific workloads. And I've got simply some examples here, like protein docking, search and sequence, some Hadoop, not all, but some Hadoop applications, probably not in the ETL context. And then transportation scheduling as some examples. So the application set that is suitable are integer-based apps. And, if you think about the trade-off, because the processor is today 32-bit versus 64-bit, it's, there's a lot of applications that really aren't tuned to 64-bit. A lot of applications that aren't tuned properly to parallel. But if you have the right application, and because you've solved some of the space and issues with the form factor, even with a slower gigahertz, you can still wind more vanilla tasks or generic tasks across a larger number, and your power and consumption is going to be less. Your wall clock time might actually remain the same. So it's something that we see that's going to get snapped in. It will run specific workloads similar to what we've seen happen with GPUs, which are not entirely or exclusively used for graphics, but for vector codes. And the industries that has trickled into for GPUs, 2-3 years ago, you started to see it. Now it's prevalent in many of those industries. And I think we're going to see the same thing. So essentially, Univa Grid Engine for ARM is a standard. We have a beta that is available on our website. We're calling it a beta. It's gone through a full test of our QA suite, so it's passed. Essentially, lets you build ARM servers at scale. We believe initially that's going to be from testing. However, if there is an organization that wanted to put it in production, we'd be more than happy to stand behind it. Fact is, it's gone through our pretty rigorous QA test suite. I mentioned at the top, we've partnered with Calxeda. Calxeda is a vendor that has licensed the ARM technology and is building system boards and SoCs. We use this to build the product and then again run our full QA suite on it. The development effort was really straightforward for us. I'm sure people imagine Grid Engine's not a trivial product or application. It's essentially a distributed operating system that is many lines of code. It's written in C. However, the effort was very straightforward, and I thought that was a surprise to myself, and I think maybe some other people around here, that it was that easy. It was made straightforward because of the work that Calxeda has done through their contributions to the open source community, to the Linux community, to ensure that the drivers and capabilities are there. So once we got the system built, doing the QA was, again, as I said, pretty straightforward. And it wasn't man months, it was literally man hours, man days. So it was a pretty pleasant trip to get the product built. So, maybe in conclusion, the proof is what the industry says, and we've had some nice things written about us recently. Today we've had coverage in ZDNet and Slashdot, to name a few. We have more that we expect, but the media seems to be agreeing that there's a large discussion about the potential of ARM, and I think it's pretty clear which side Univa's coming down on in that discussion. We do think it's going to take time. 64-bit for sure is, I think, a requirement for many organizations. There's a lot of testing and trials that can be run over the next 6 to 9 months, and we intended to be part of that. Rich, I'll hand back the mic.
Well, thanks for that, Gary. I had to ask you about this one quote, right? It says 451. It says Univa is now a one-trick pony. What do they mean by that, do you think?
That was, we did an interview with 451. We did an update at ISC last year, and the report came out, and that was the title. And I like the title so much, I use it as the quote. So what they mean is our business is focused on Grid Engine. That's the core. That is the center of what we do when we get up in the morning. And that's what we think about when we go to bed at night. So that's the one-trick pony. The opportunity around Grid Engine as a business, and because of the customers and the deep support of the product, I think is how they mean it's a pretty good trick. And that's the rest of the report was actually quite favorable, and I like the quote.
Terrific. So Gary, you and I were talking before we started the call here, and HP has got an ARM-based server project with Moonshot, and Dell as well with Project Copper. As these machines start coming to the market, do you see this Univa Grid Engine capability as a way for people to more easily take those devices and integrate them into their production environments?
So there's two sides to that. Maybe it's a sequence of how I would answer it. And the first is, if you want to understand how ARM is going to work versus particular application sets, then you can stick one or two in the corner. I don't know that that's necessarily what people are going to do for very long. I think you're going to have to try the applications, breaking them down, as I mentioned earlier, vanilla tasks. If you're running MapReduce applications on it or some search and sequence, you're certainly going to want to do that at scale. So in order to do that, Carl at Calxeda, has noted in I think more than one occasion, when they get it in, the next challenge is, well, how do I really run it through, and how do I really push the scale? And that's where a scheduler comes in. Workload management, needs to be there. And I think what the next sequence is, once I go into production after I've validated it, I don't want to have a different set of management tools than what I have in my other environments. I don't really want to build a standalone environment or a silo. So being able to either build and integrate them in as yet another resource that gets scheduled across different applications, I think is a pretty attractive thing.
And then, Gary, in this kind of environment, if you've got Univa running and controlling other devices in your data center, will this easily kind of patch you into that world, do you think? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's going to be two approaches. There may be organizations that, deploy ARM technologies and ARM-based servers underneath specific applications. But, and if you think about the other trends, which really haven't touched HPC yet as a broad brush, but, VMware taught us how to share a server, and cloud, regardless of the operating system that you would use, whether it's OpenStack or what have you, has taught us how to share infrastructure. So the methodology and our mantra now is Grid Engine builds a shared infrastructure, whether it's shared across Hadoop, our traditional applications, or you're sharing it underneath a scheduling of crew and fleet, or if you really want to run virtual machines in the environment and then use a mechanism to create the policies and the reporting and the insight, that's exactly what Grid Engine can do. Well,
great. Gary, kind of a wrap-up question here. I see Calxeda as a disruptive kind of company, and when you team with them at Univa, do you see this as a way to bring in a whole new range of customers to Grid Engine?
That's exactly what the approach is. At the end of the day, if the technology gains its foothold, I do believe it's going to be with a lot of pushing from a company like Calxeda. They've got a lot of momentum, and for us to take the first step, we reached out to Calxeda and asked them if we should be trying to figure this out and work together. So I do think that is correct. I think the customers that it will bring us, if today is any indication, just in terms of the media coverage, we got covered with interviews from non-HPC magazines and technologies and editors. And our Hadoop integration and our story with Archimedes was covered by CIO magazine, by Forbes. The customer of our customer was covered by the Wall Street Journal. And so if I use that as a leading indicator, then I think the answer to your question is absolutely correct. There's no question, because we're not exclusively talking to the HPC market and saying something yet again with yet another technology. It's a different use case, perhaps outside, that can attract a different audience. And ARM, I think, is one of those vehicles.
Well, terrific. Well, Gary Tyreman, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
Well, I appreciate it, and I thank you, Rich. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Gary. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on high-performance computing.